Being a creative, I wanted to have a fashion brand, but I wanted it to mean something. I didn't want it to just be about fashion. I wanted it to show that there is a way we can care about the environment. We can leave enough for generations coming. We can live in harmony with nature. Because when I decided I wanted to go into sustainable fashion, more mindful fashion, I also started looking at how to do business, but how to do business in a way that would work with sustainability. My brand started in 2012. The whole thing about my brand is how we can reduce waste, but then use it as a resource to preserve our traditional craft skills. And what I mean by that is that we turn waste into yarn and then we weave it on traditional looms, hand looms. So that skill of Ashoke weaving still lives on.
Cumulatively, the market value of fashion in Africa is estimated to be $31 million, a lucrative venture. But this sector is costing the environment. The fashion industry creates about 4% of global waste and produces 10% of carbon emissions, as it consumes more energy than aviation and shipping combined. Leader Network paid a visit to Nkwo, a Nigerian fashion brand promoting sustainable fashion. While creating exceptional pieces, 3 core pillars guide their production: textile waste reduction, traditional craft skills preservation, and environmental conservation. We had a sit-down conversation with Nkwo Onwuka, the brain behind the Nkwo brand.
When we were growing up, we weren't allowed to watch TV a lot, and so the outside was like our TV. So we used to play out, like catch frogs, just have ant farms. We just used to do all those kind of things. And so when we came back to Nigeria, it was just a whole different world. It was like you could run around everywhere with no shoes on. There were, new kinds of insects and lizards and all kinds of things that we found. And so it's just me. I've always preferred to be outside than inside. My brand is very much interested in sustainability. And it came about because while I was young, and I used to follow 3 conservationists who were David Attenborough, Diane Fossey, and Jane Goodall. And I'd followed the progress, and I'd watched their programs, and I could see how much the environment was degrading and human beings were doing this. And so I felt that being a creative, I wanted to have a fashion brand, but I wanted it to mean something. I didn't want it to just be about fashion. I wanted it to show that there is a way we can care about the environment. We can leave enough for generations coming. We can live in harmony with nature. And so that's why I really honed on to sustainability, because I felt like if I could do it, I could show others that it's possible, and we'd have a lot more brands thinking, being mindful about the environment, as opposed to just making clothes.
The Nkwo brand is an internationally recognized and award-winning brand.
And the winner is Nkwo. Congratulations.
It's great that we can cross borders.
Appearing on NASDAQ in Times Square, New York, as part of the Conscious Fashion campaign, Vogue magazine, CNN, to list a few. With the level of success experienced by the Nkwo brand, it is proof that you can merge commerce, fashion, and sustainability and still preserve culture. According to Nkwo, what is the point in creating more than we can use if it causes us to live less of a life? In her words, we are losing the art of creating with our hands, and many of our traditional handcrafts are at the risk of fading away, and the culture of the handmade is being eliminated in favor of cheap mass-produced products.
The whole thing about my brand is how we can reduce waste, but then use it as a resource to preserve our traditional craft skills. And what I mean by that is that we turn waste into yarn and then we weave it on traditional looms, hand looms. So that skill of Ashoke weaving still lives on. A lot of these generational crafts are very time consuming, and the children of the artisans are not really interested in doing it because there is this influx of cheap products that come from China, and it just corrupts the value system that we have. And so instead of people valuing, like growing the cotton, spinning the cotton, turning it into yarn, weaving it, it's all labor intensive, but I feel it's really beautiful, and we can't lose it. We need to keep all of these traditions alive. So I tend to look for to source everything I can locally. So we work with we buy our cotton, our processed cotton textiles. We get them from Funtua, which is in the north of Nigeria here. We also work with communities of artisans, or communities of, so I call them small-scale farmers, where we have some in the mountains, so a group of old men in the mountains in Adamawa State, and they grow cotton, they process it, they turn it into yarn, and then we buy the cotton on these bobbins. This is cotton that we've bought from this community of old men in the mountains in Adamawa State. So they grow it and spin it, and then we buy it off them, and that way it keeps their handcraft going, because it's a very interesting process when you watch how they actually take the fluffy cotton and spin it into yarn. Like hand dyeing as well is an art when you hand dye, not just hand dyeing, but dyeing with natural, using natural dyes, plant dyes, like they do in Kano, because you get the runoff, but when you use chemical dyes, the runoff is actually toxic, and it degrades, it gets into the water systems, and it's really bad for the environment. So we try to use as much as possible natural dyes, conserving water. We try to reuse things, we use up waste so that we don't pollute where we can help it.
The fashion industry creates about 4% of global waste, particularly due to the unending demand for more and more clothes at an even faster pace of production. Worrisome is that the increased demand in our fast-paced world has left us with almost no time to stop and think about the impact of our environment.
All right, so everything I make, there's always a reason. Sometimes the reason isn't apparent to others, but it is to me. And so let's take this for example. So it's the lion head, and I just find that lions in Nigeria are endangered. They're not very many at all. And so for me, it's like telling the story of conservation through a bag. So you look at this and ask why the lion head, and then the conversation goes, well, because they're endangered, and we need to learn that there's enough space for all of us to live together. We can't kill everything and just take over the world. There's a reason why all these different species and animals are here. And so if they're all gone, then the ecosystem fails, and we fail as a race as well. This now is really conservation. We're starting this project that has to do with animal conservation. And the pangolin is one of the most endangered species in the whole world, the most endangered animals in the whole world. People are selling the scales to China and all of that. And this is to bring awareness to the problem, but it's also to support wildlife conservation. We're working with the national parks to raise awareness and also help them raise funds to take care of the animals that we have in Nigeria. In terms of innovation, I I sort of, I think a lot, and I'm always thinking of different ways to do things, in a more mindful way, in a sort of more creative way. And so I think about things that haven't been done before, and how could I bring them out of my head and into a product. And that's why my things, like innovation is very important to me, because it means, you're bringing new things in. And that's just the way I work. I like to see things that haven't been done before.
The Nkwo brand's most recent initiative is the reverse retail system.
Under the reverse retail system that we have come up with, we've designed these pieces whereby people can select a piece, but then they have to send in their denim to have it made for them. So this is an example of one of our pieces. This is the coat. So this is made from all secondhand denim, and that's the finish. Really nice. So that's what the system is about, getting people to use what they have as opposed to wasting or trashing or buying new things that they would have rather used what they had to make. So the process is, you have old denim, you like one of the designs, we tell you how much denim is required to make that design, you send it in, and then we make it for you. So yes, so this is one of the designs, is a jean pants and trousers. So yeah, so you can send in your denim and have this made for you, and we send it back to you.
To whom much is given, much is expected. The Nkwo brand is also in the business of transforming lives through the Nkwo Transform project.
First time I went to the IDP camp was last year in March, and I'd been looking for women to train, people to train who could come and work with us. And so I went to the camp. We took this whole idea of working with waste, turning waste to wealth. That was where it started from. And I thought by the time we trained the women, we'd get maybe 2 who would stay and we'd employ them. And so we went to the camp, and 10 women agreed to come on the training program, and they never left. They stayed with us all through the training. And at the end of the day, I thought to myself that I can't train them and leave them. So what do I do? So I decided to get a space where they could all come out from the camp, come to work, and I employed all of them. And then it's also a thing of like the charities. There are a lot of charities in the camp, but what the charities tend to do is offer them hope and then just leave them hanging. And so they train them and they don't give them employment, they don't give them routes to market, nothing. So I thought, we need to do this differently. So I've employed them, and they're currently working in our transformation center, where we transform waste into all different kinds of products. And what started out as our waste to wealth scheme has now become Nkwo Transform. So it's a social innovation initiative where we're transforming women's lives and transforming waste. So that's where it comes from. And so the women are still with us. They've been with us for, this is like a year and a half now. No, sorry, it's not up to, it's a bit more than a year they've been with us. They're learning how to speak English. They're learning financial management. Yeah, just how to manage their finances, how to save. They're learning how to be part of an organization and not part of a charity. So you have to come to work. You have to be accountable for yourself. You have to be responsible for the task you're given, and then you get paid, and then you can start to save, start to grow. What we're currently doing now is trying to get them housing outside of the camp so that they can integrate into society.
We have one Earth, which is currently facing the worst climate change impact. Therefore, we must strive to protect it through sustainable business practices, as seen in the case of the Nkwo brand. This is Leader Network.